Wake up, NHL fans. This is your morning cup of hockey alongside Colby Cohen, who's been tripping me all morning. I'm Jonny Lazarus. We got a lot to get into today. We're going to be joined by Mike Rupp in about 5 minutes from the NHL Network to talk about common trends right now in the NHL. We're going to talk about all the trophies, the races, the MVP race, the Vezina, the Hart, the Norris, the Rocket Richard, and we're going to talk about more drama between coaches and NHL media. But before we get into any of that, Colby Cohen, how's your morning going? Because I think I have the giggles right now.
My morning's been going pretty good. As you mentioned off the top, it's the pre-show meeting for you today has been kind of rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've kind of been all over you this morning, which is well deserved because we always love hearing about your personal life. I don't think the audience is ready to hear about your personal life, but it is giving Vic and I something to laugh at. Of course, Vic's our producer behind the scenes working the magic. So not a very busy night last night in the NHL, Johnny. One game was postponed. The uh,
Mm.
the Buffalo Sabres versus the Chicago Blackhawks was supposed to be a national TV broadcast. I don't know how they ended up drawing short straw on that, especially without Connor Bedard playing. I mean, I can understand wanting to get him on TNT with Bedard, but without Bedard, that would probably have been a little bit of a rough audience last night for that game. So maybe the snow and the weather gods helped everybody out.
Well, it also made some cool entertainment last night for TNT because they did the broadcast from the booth or from the studio, excuse me, in Atlanta, which was a very different look for hockey. I mean, it kind of felt like watching a Manning cast version of the NHL. But I thought it was, there were things about it that I
Let me
liked.
guess, you loved it. You love
No, I
everything.
didn't love it at all. I didn't love it at all. I love the
Wow.
classic. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like think it was
So
terrible,
are
but I
you
didn't.
calling them out?
No, they adjusted
Are you
it.
feeling like Liam and Biz and those guys didn't do a good job? Because if
No,
that's what you're saying, we probably should reach
shut
out to
up. I
Liam.
hate when you do this. No,
We should
I
reach
love
out to
the
Liam
TNT
and get him
panel.
on the show.
I love the TNT panel. They adjusted, they figured something out, they tried something different, and that's what I love about them too. They're not afraid to try something different. But I love the classic play-by-play color dynamic, and it was unfortunate that the guys on the call, I think it was Brennan Burke last night. I'm not sure who was in color, but they couldn't get to Florida on time, obviously. So TNT had to adjust, and they did what they could do. And I thought it was better than having no alternative, right? Like what was the other option to just have no TNT last night? It was still good to have them during the intermissions and talk about everything going on last night in the games and whatnot. So I thought they adjusted pretty well. But
Yeah.
yes, I'd
Well,
prefer a normal
they
play-by-play in color.
they could have thrown Goldie in there, the longtime play-by-play guy for the
But if Bally had
part.
the rights to the game, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I don't think it was I think it was a TNT exclusive. So I don't think Goldie was doing the game
Oh,
last night.
really?
I would have loved to have seen Goldie get a crack at national TV. I think
He's awesome.
He's got such a great voice.
Mm.
I feel like he's underrated because Florida's a little bit of a smaller hockey market, obviously, but Goldie does a lot of radio in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's been doing it for years, and we used to be on different crews, but a part of the same group at Westwood One that would do playoff games and such. And I'm a big Goldie fan. I think he's a phenomenal play-by-play guy, and he's so versatile too. He does NFL. I think he does
Yeah.
some preseason games in the NFL for the Dolphins. He might even do some Dolphins radio. So, but yeah,
I,
it was a different look for sure. I mean, I think one thing that's probably was difficult about that for those guys is just kind of finding out last minute.
mhm.
And then I think the big difference, like between the Manning cast and what they did last night, is you have two guys versus four. I think it's a little bit probably easier to jump in and jump out of things with two guys. I think when it's four people that haven't really done that together, I just think it makes for a little bit of a challenge. But I thought Liam did a nice job of kind of keeping it on the rails, which, with Biz is always a challenge. But I'm glad you started off the show today, Johnny, just absolutely roasting those guys because we're going to have to send them the clip and we're going to have to get Liam on here to defend himself. Obviously, that's what this show's all about. We already squashed beef with Frank Vetrano. So,
I literally hate you
um,
so much. It's insane.
I give those guys props for doing something new. Honestly, like you said, I think new is always good to try.
Mhm.
I think NHL Network has done a lot of new stuff this year with different shows and different things. And I know, Johnny, you have one of your friends coming on the show here in the next couple of minutes, and he'll be a perfect guy to ask about that.
Yeah, well, I think Rupper is ready to go, and I'm happy to call Rupper one of my friends these days. So we're very happy to welcome on NHL Network studio and color analyst, someone most hockey fans know very well by now, I'd hope. He's made a lot of noise in the media and in his playing career. So welcome to Morning Cup of Hockey, Mike Rupp. Rupper, how you doing?
Hey.
Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Thanks for having me on, boys. How you guys doing?
Well, we're I don't know if you could tell, but we're in the giggle mood today. Cody or Colby. Oh my God, I'm so lost right
Doesn't
now.
even know my name, Rupper.
Colby's been ripping me all morning, so just trying to adjust and get used to things. But Rupper, let's just dive right into it. The NHL storyline this year has been insane. There's been a lot of different narratives. I don't know if you caught the Devils Canadiens game last night.
Yeah.
But in the post-game presser, Lindy Ruff did have a little bit of a remark toward Ryan Novozinski. He said, "You don't watch the game very well," and then went into why he didn't play Alexander Holtz. I just wanted to get your thoughts on those comments because we've seen a lot of coaches lashing out lately in the media.
Yeah, I mean, it's I saw that those kind of cringy moments if you're maybe in that press room, right? And you're just like, oh, but it's I don't know. I don't know if it's that. It's kind of getting to that point. I think this time of year, right, where you're starting to feel more and more pressure because playoffs and playoff implications seem to be on the line every night. So, we're also at a place now, and you guys know from playing the game where it's like there's more and more. I feel like in the game's so fun, man. It's so like never been healthier as far as skill. Never been this good on a nightly basis. Very entertaining, but I think the coach rhetoric as far as protecting the puck and not turning the puck over, it gets frustrating. And I think this is kind of like an indirect way at times when you get asked a question just to sneak it out there, right? Just say we got to be better in those areas. And the Devils in that game, they didn't do a great job of managing the puck or being kind of aware in certain things. But yeah, I mean, it's not probably going to ever go back to what it was as far as managing the puck, but I think that's the difference between winning and losing. And in the Devils standpoint right now, like they need every point they can get, and they didn't get anything last night against Montreal. But yeah, that was when you got a guy like Lindy. Lindy just got that look to him too, right? Like when he says it, you just feel like, oh, like he's very disappointed in that question. But yeah, that was an interesting one. We're seeing that a lot lately with coaches kind of biting back.
But Rupper, I want to ask, and I want to kind of stay on that because, I've sat in the press box before. And when I was working in Chicago and it would be a national game, and they get a lot of national games. So I would sit right in the press box behind all the writers and a lot of the people who ask the questions. And I can't necessarily disagree with what Lindy said, because every time I look down, their heads are in their computers. So when he says you're not watching the game that closely, I mean, he's probably not wrong. And on top of that, when media spends so much time critiquing everything that a coach and a player does, I think it's okay every now and again for a coach and a player to have an opinion back to the media, as long as you're not swearing at them or, screaming at the top of your lungs. I mean, I don't have a problem with the coach kind of biting back a little bit. I actually like the personality side of it.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think there's a personality side. I think there's a way, just like you're explaining, there's a way to go about it, right? And there's entertainment, maybe value in that. But at the end of the day, when you are in our position where we're sitting right now doing this, or whether it's TV, writing, being being with the Athletic or whomever, you've got a platform to kind of give your opinion. And as much as I think coaches want to say they don't pay attention to that, it is brought to their attention. They know if you're writing and saying things about them. So, it's in their right to kind of push back once in a while. I would probably do the exact same thing, right? And I think even in a situation, even going back to last night, like Holtz got him that big goal, right?
Yeah.
And it was after he got sat down. So I think if you're getting a question about why he got sat down, well, why does that matter? Like, he got put back in and he scored a big goal for us. Like, there was a response in some way, shape, or form. So, I think coaches kind of get frustrated at times and want to just voice, they're not going to tell you all the ins and outs and why, but they're going to kind of push back and be like, just, let me do my job is kind of the message, I think.
Yeah, and I will say, just in Ryan Novozinski's defense, because the question wasn't clipped in the clip that went viral. He just asked like, "Why you decide to sit Holtz?" It wasn't
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't a
you know,
bad. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's it. And I think that's it too. It's like I think that there's some times where, again, like that's what's always tough on that side of it too. It's like we don't even know what the question was, and it's a totally
yeah,
fine, acceptable question in that situation. But we don't know. Like the coaches sometimes want to just get a message out there, and maybe that's the indirect way to
mhm,
kind of send the message to the team. Like it doesn't matter right now. We need to know what we're getting when we send a player over the boards, and I don't know what I'm getting sometimes, so I'm going to sit you. Basically, is what he's kind of saying, and it's almost like they use the media and maybe the media member is the victim in that
yeah,
situation where it's just like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do it right now. And
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like a way I think the coaches can kind of get a message to their team.
Well, I gotta ask
Well,
you, have you ever lashed out at a media member in your playing days?
No, I don't think I ever lashed out.
You don't
you know
strike me as
I
the guy that would, but I feel like I had to
Yeah,
ask.
I mean, I don't. I mean, listen. I think that you said that off to the top too. Like, you got to be respectful, man. These guys are doing a job, and I know it from this side of it too. Like, I got to go on NHL Network every day and talk about hockey, right? And we're a show that's talking. It's a talk show basically about hockey. All right. So there's going to be things like, I have a job to do and they have a job to do as well. So when I was playing, I listen, you can ask people. I mean, I would think that everybody, I respected the reporters, but then there's also times where it's maybe more so just off to the side, pull a guy aside. Hey, that one wasn't, I didn't love that question. What'd you mean by it? Whatever. But I never had one where you're kind of it was not a soundbite, put it that way. Nothing went viral. Nothing went viral when I if I snap back at a
yeah.
reporter.
You certainly did your talking on the ice. With the way that you played, you didn't have to say much. You just showed people how you felt and what you meant by the way that you played. Um, Rupper, you bring up the NHL Network thing. We see you on there just about every day, and you're in Jersey when you're doing the NHL Network, so you're kind of right in this metropolitan division corridor. Your Devils, Flyers, Rangers, Islanders, they're all kind of right on top of you, and it's been a kind of a goofy year in the Metro.
Yeah.
The Flyers come out of nowhere. I know you work with Scott Hartnell. I know Hartsey says that he's been saying it since training camp. I don't know if we have receipts for that or not. We'll have to see if we do. Then you got the Devils who seem to be floundering. You've got the Islanders who seem to be floundering. You're kind of around it all with the guys that you work with because you work with team guys from some of these places. I didn't even bring up Pittsburgh, obviously a place you know well. But what kind of sense are you getting on how this division is going to shake out this year? Because on any given night, it doesn't seem like we really know what we're going to get.
Yeah, it's one where I mean, I don't think we expected a lot that's going on right now in that division as far as who is going to be where they're at right now. I mean, probably the most predictable one, I would think would be the Rangers. Like I figured that most people probably thought that they would contend or be at the top of that division. Carolina certainly has turned it around. Carolina was a team that, geez, they didn't look like themselves for quite some time, right? Like leading up to where we're at right now in the season. It's an interesting one. I don't want to pile on the New York Islanders, but I've said it the entire season. Like it's not sustainable what they were doing. Like the underlying numbers, and if you want to get into the nerd talk, like they had no business getting points in games that they got points in. And they found themselves not too long ago in second place in the Metro, and that's fallen off because of the way they play and what they give up, man. It's been I just I love the players of the New York Islanders. I like if I went across that roster, I'd be like, I'd love that guy on my team, that guy on my team, that guy on my team. But collectively as a group, I don't love the team, right? And I think that their MO of defending is they're terrible at it now. They don't defend as a unit. So I think that they're going to continue to fall out. The Devils are playing better. If they get back healthy, I think that that should be a team that I think we were all expecting more. We thought they would be pushing for the top of that division. I think it's going to come down to the Flyers I love what the Flyers are doing. I just don't know if they have enough. Do they have another level? Do they have another gear? Do they need another gear? I think it's up to those other teams like the Devils, whether it's the Islanders, the Penguins that find another gear. If they don't, yeah, the Flyers can still be in the mix come playoff time. But if they do, I don't think that the Flyers have another one. But I'll say this. I think the third spot in that division will come down to New Jersey or Pittsburgh. And, I've been fortunate enough to call games this year in Pittsburgh, so I see them often. And I hate it when people are like, oh, of course you're going to say that. You work for, no, man, I will tell you, like, there's times this year they've been hot garbage, man. They've been really bad. And I was very alarmed at different times when they've been going through their rough patches. They are playing a good brand of hockey that gives them a chance to win every night. Does that mean they'll win every night? No. They find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And I think that's the frustrating thing. But their numbers, 5-on-5 numbers, all this with like not a great power play. Their team, I think they can surprise a lot. And they get good goaltending on a consistent basis for the most part. So I think this Metro division for me is going to shake out Rangers. It's going to go Rangers, Hurricanes, some way, shape, or form, Devils, Penguins, whichever one is not in that third spot's in a wild card spot. And then it's kind of up for grabs for that last wild card spot.
Yeah, look, by just watching, you're certainly on the money with a lot of those things. And I think the Flyers are the one, like every time I feel the same way you feel and the way you're talking, they go out and they put a 60-minute effort together against a top team in the NHL. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm not giving these guys enough credit. So I've wavered on them a lot this year. And it's hard to really know, Rupper. And then the one other thing that you said that was pretty interesting was when you were talking about the Islanders, who Jonny's been pretty vicious against over the last week of our shows. I think I saw a stat where Ilya Sorokin, the only goalie you've seen more 40-plus shot games in the NHL than Ilya Sorokin over this year and the last couple of years, is John Gibson. And we know John Gibson gets peppered every night in Anaheim. So, I mean, that's a great sort of stat. And I'm not a huge numbers, dive too deep into the numbers guy, but it's a lot of stress to put on your goaltender. And I agree. It's really not sustainable.
Yeah, no, it is. And here's the thing too with Sorokin's numbers, this is a guy, I think he has been in that conversation and will continue to be a perennial Vezina conversation guy, right? Whether he's a finalist or he's going to be in that grouping. His numbers aren't what we've seen better numbers from Ilya Sorokin in his career, but I don't think we've ever seen him facing what he's facing now. Like the numbers that he is facing right now is, as far as the looks, the grade A's, I mean, the defensive breakdowns, you can go across pretty much every statistical category, defensive metric. The Islanders are probably 27th to 32nd in the National Hockey League in every single category, which is crazy to me because that's supposed to be their MO, who they are, right? And this is a team that, I saw this other number the other day that yesterday that was there's only been 4 times in the last 24 games that the Islanders have given up 3 goals or less. Okay, so I know that that's kind of confusing. I had to read it a couple times. I'm like, hold on a second. So in 24 games, they've only held the opponent to 3 goals or less 4 times. Like, who are they then? Like, that's who they're supposed to be. Aren't they supposed to be this boring shutdown? That's why the same team has been brought back year after year since they went to the Eastern Conference Finals twice. It's because they're that boring team you don't get chances against. And now all of a sudden it's like this really weird year because now like their power play looks great. It never has. Their power play looks great. They can't defend as a group. I just don't know if they know who they are right now. And I don't see it changing really.
Noah Dobson. He's the difference on that power play. It's the first
been
time
incredible.
I think it's the first time they've had a pure guy to run it from the top. So you're not just putting all your eggs in the Barzal basket on the flank. Power plays that run from the flank, I don't think they're as consistent. I think a guy who can run it from the top, brings the killers out and then opens plays up down low, gets pucks in and through to the net, Jonny. So I think that's a big difference. And I don't want to steal all the airtime here, Rupper. This guy, like, he loves you so much. He talks about you so frequently. Like, I want to give him an opportunity to talk to you too.
Thank you for playing it cool, Colby. I appreciate that. But Rupper, I'm very excited to ask you this question. It's a huge reason why I wanted to have you on, honestly. the MVP race this year feels a little bit different than previous years. You know, the 5 guys to me that stand out are Nikita Kucherov, Nathan McKinnon, David Pastrnak, Artemi Panarin, and Connor McDavid has now been creeping along, over the last 20, 30 games and making his name for the race. But I think we're guilty of it being a little bit skewed because you look at the guys like Nathan McKinnon and the supporting cast he has, and Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. You look at Nikita Kucherov, and his year has been incredible, but he also has the Steven Stamkos effect. You look at David Pastrnak. I think he separates himself a little bit because Boston's roster this year is a little bit different than previous years.
I know where you're going with this, Johnny. I know where you're going.
I'm teeing it up. I'm teeing it up. Just let me finish.
He already wrote the article, Rupper. He just
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
He's one of these guys.
But McDavid has Draisaitl, and we've seen how Leon can step up without Connor. And now to the bread man.
Yes.
Artemi Panarin, what he's done for the Rangers this year and how good they've been because of him, and what he's done for Vincent Trocheck, what he's done for that power play, and how he's gotten the Rangers to a consistent top spot in the Eastern Conference. Is there a real case for him to be the Hart Trophy winner?
I mean, for me, especially, I don't know as far as the voting, like, in all different categories, and some of these categories are voted on by the PW, what is it? Pro Hockey, PH, whatever is it? What are the
the Writers Association?
Yeah. There's the writers that vote for some of these. You've got GMs that vote for certain awards. There's all these different things, but the human element of it, you take into account other things, right? Like it's just, the big thing, even when we're talking Hart trophies, is your team going to make the playoffs? So, for an example, if Tampa does not make the playoffs, you have to, for me, remove Nikita Kucherov. Like, unless Nikita Kucherov, if he was to run away with the Art Ross by 20 points, now he's still in the conversation. He's not going to do that probably. So I think that's a big thing with removing certain guys in certain scenarios. If the Rangers win the Metro and they are, an elite team, a contender, and you look at what Artemi Panarin's doing, yeah, absolutely, this guy's got to be right in there. And to be honest, he might be my favorite right now. And I think too, it's what you're saying. You take into account the other guys. Who's he playing with? What has he done for that line? What has he done for that power play? You got to take all that into account. It's the timeliness of his plays and his goals. And I think Brett is as good as we've seen him in his career right now. He's in that conversation, and the fact that, I want to, please don't take this as a knock. Definitely not a knock, but like, Lafreniere has been so good this year and so much better. Like he's breaking. This is his breakout year, and he's not done. I think it's going to be even more down the road from him. But with that being said, I think consistently playing with Artemi Panarin has a big factor in that, right? So, and whether it's Vinny Trocheck, him, Artemi Panarin is he's shooting the puck more, and we know that. I think he's already, the other day when I was looking, he was like 177 shots, I think now, and I think his career high is not much more than that, right, in this season. So he's shatter in the shot department. He's not looking to be a pass first guy all the time. I think it's made him super dangerous. He's in there. You missed one guy though, and I hate that because they're going to get the homer thing again. Sidney Crosby, that storyline with the Penguins.
Have to put him in.
What Sid is doing right now, and again, to go back to seeing him pretty much every game. This Penguins team, like I said, has had their very bad moments, flat moments. At every turn, at every point in this season, Sidney Crosby has been the guy when they need a goal. He has the first goal in like 6 games this year. He has, every goal is meaningful. What he does on both sides of the puck. This is the storyline for me. If this Penguins team can kind of get into even one of those top 3 spots, he's got to be in that conversation. And he's got Jake Gensel, and Jake's been incredible. You talked about some of the guys that go back. I want to tag it, Colby, when you were talking before. I can't believe Noah Dobson's not in the All-Star game. That's first
crazy. Hi, crazy.
I thought that the other day.
Secondly, Jake Gensel's probably a second to him as far as should be in the All-Star game. He's having a hell of a season too. But Crosby's in that group of players. But for me right now, I think Artemi Panarin and the storyline around the Rangers, if they can keep it going, he'll be a front runner.
Rupper, do you like the way they do the All-Star game now? Well, first off, Jonny, like, can you even finish the show after he just said all those nice things about the Rangers and he brought up Lafreniere? I mean, you must just be on cloud nine right
Why
now.
do you think
But
I asked him to come on today?
I mean, like, this couldn't have been more coordinated. But do you like the way they do the All-Star game where everyone has to have a guy in? Because now we're not seeing Noah Dobson or Gensel, you know, and I think we lose some of the best players in the world, and no disrespect to whoever goes from Chicago, but like they don't deserve to be there this year. Seth Jones is an all-star caliber player. He's been injured. Maybe he's going to be the guy who goes. I have no idea. But like this year, he doesn't deserve to be there. No adoption should be there. Okay. Jason Dickinson is not an all-star if he ends up going. And that's no disrespect. He would tell you the same thing. So do you like it, or should we go back to the old way where we just put the best players in the game?
Yeah, I don't like it. I understand why you do it, but I don't like it. And I go back to what you're saying there too. It's like, so my good buddy Patty Eliash was in the All-Star game when it was in Columbus. I don't remember what year, but I was done playing. So it's probably, I'm guessing 16, somewhere around there. Columbus had the All-Star game. And so I went and I had lunch with him, and he was in New Jersey, and he was one of those guys. He's having a good year. I mean, Patty for me is not Hall of Famer. That's another conversation. But he wasn't an all-star that year when you're comparatively speaking, and he knew that. And I was talking to him like, oh, I'm seeing one of my buddies around the All-Star game hanging out. I'm like, oh, Patty, what are you competing in? What are you doing this? He's like, I'm not doing anything, man. I'm going to do any of those ones where it's passing those guys the pucks. Those guys are the all-star. I understand why I'm here. He's very appreciative of it, but at the same rate, like he knew that he wasn't one of those guys that year. And I was like, I mean, it was, he's a humble guy. He's always been, and I understand that, but the players know too. Like, do they want to go? Yeah, it's an honor, man, to go to the All-Star game in the NHL. You kidding me? But at the same rate, like, there's so many guys, like if I'm there as one of those guys because my team needs a representative and I know Noah Dobson's sitting at home,
Yeah.
I kind of feel dumb, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And again, you're gonna say the right things. You're gonna be like, hey, I'm appreciative. I'm here representing my team and all those things. But at the end of the day, like it's I understand why it's done, but it's a broken system because I mean, even I don't even know, to be honest with you guys, and you guys know this from contracts. This is the thing that always got me. And again, I don't know, so I might be speaking off base here, but like I had in every single standard player contract, I had, if I made it to the All-Star game,
A bonus.
I had a bonus.
I agree.
I knew I was never going to make it to an All-Star game, but like that was in there. So are those? I question this all the time. I want to dig on it now. I'm like, are those still in there? Because
if you got fan voted in, that's extra money in your pocket.
Yeah, and then it's taking money out of the guys' pockets who probably actually deserved it, right? You know what I mean? So it's a tough spot, and I get it. I understand why it's done. The whole idea of this, it's not necessarily about being fair or getting the recognition. It's about growing the game, and that's what the All-Star game and the All-Star weekend is. So I want to end it on that. Is I know there's a lot of things, like sometimes guys, people don't like the events that are happening or different things with the All-Star game. I find the All-Star game, it's like it's a league outreach. And maybe it once was to show what each player can do. It's a league outreach now where they're trying to grow markets, and I get that. So when you accept that, then I could be like, I don't feel bad for Noah Dobson. He's going to be in Mexico, and he's going to have a few days. He's going to be rejuvenated. Everything will be fine. But yeah, there's still some guys that get snubbed.
This year's more about Justin Bieber than anything anyway. So it's the year to
Hey, what do you guys, I'm sure you guys have talked about the jerseys. What are you thinking? For real?
Yikes. Mega yikes.
See, I don't mind the front. I like the front. I like the front. And I had my son send me a message, and he's 19. He's like, oh, I love these. So I'm like, okay, well, it's clicking with like that genre or that age group. But
we don't matter. We don't matter anymore. They've got
no one cares. No one cares what I'm considered old now, right? So it's like, but the back of the jerseys is where I have an issue. I don't love the
brutal
names written lowercase lettering.
And the font. It looks
Yeah.
like something we got off of Word Perfect when we were in like 8th grade on those big bubble computers that we had. I know, Johnny, you probably had an iPhone when you were like 3, but
No, I was
you know,
BlackBerry till like 10th
Rupper
grade, dude.
Rupper and I come from a little bit of a different generation than you. So
No
you know,
iPhone.
I'm not into him. I really don't like him. I think we've had over the years, especially back in the day, if they want these retro feels like from the
Last
'90s,
year's were sick.
last years were cool. But I just think they could have done a much better job with them. But
What I do like with them though is and again, this goes back to I like that the league takes chances. Some of them hit, some of them don't. We'll see how these jerseys are. I'm sure the sales are still going to be great. Uh, what I like about them is how it's very obvious that there's different colors. In the past years, we've had good vibes with the All-Star jerseys, but when you divide it up over 4 divisions, like I'm there, we're covering the game, and you don't know which team is on the ice by looking at it. You got to know who the players are, right? So like as a consumer, I'm like, you know, maybe you tune in halfway through and I don't know what team's out there because it's just a variation of 2 jerseys with just kind of moving some colors around. It gets a little confusing. So now it's like very obvious. You got the color, you got a yellow, a blue, you know, a red, like that to me it helps, I guess.
Yeah. I am happy to hear that your son likes them. So, you know, at least there are people out there
you
who
guys
have.
are like the same age, aren't you?
How old is he? I don't know. There's
19?
no way. Yeah. Well, not too far off.
Not too far, not too far. Hey, but I heard that you've got a Panarin one already coming your way. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
already, even though he's not playing, you still ordered the jerseys. You don't dislike him
Rupper,
that much.
he's got a special edition Alexis Lafreniere jersey because once Othman got sent back to the minors, he had to switch back to his original BF, which is Alexis Lafreniere.
Hey,
The day that I buy a jersey of someone younger than me, kill me.
that'd be the guy.
No,
I got
I'm just
one.
saying I can't do it. I can't get my.
Oh, you can't do it. You can't have someone younger. Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
The real quick, without going Ranger talk too much, because I haven't talked to you in a while, Johnny. I love not Logan Cooley. Jeez. I love Will Cooley.
Mhm.
Dude, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I messed up the name just like you did Colby's at the beginning of the show. So I'm pumping it up like I really love the guy and I said the wrong name. But Will Cooley, man, I love his game. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, if every team you look for guys like that, just little pot stirrers out there and kind of get in there and he can play too. So anyway, that's my Ranger tag.
Yeah, no, Will Cooley has been a pleasant surprise this year. I think actually if the Rangers are going to target any kind of player at the deadline, it'd be someone like him, someone that plays a 200-foot game that can score goals, has some skill to him, and isn't afraid to drop the mitts too, right? So he's a tough son of a bitch.
Yeah, he is.
And,
I love him.
Yeah, but Rupper, I got one more for you before we let you go here because we want to thank you for your time. We really appreciate it this morning. But you're one of the best storytellers that there are in the media right now. Marc-Andre Fleury last week became second all time and wins. We got to hear your best flower story. Any shower autographs or nothing with him?
Not with him. Unfortunately, I couldn't add that to the naked superstar signings of jerseys. We'll fill you in on that, Colby. I've got Mario signed jersey while he was in the Buck and Henrik Lundqvist. And so that's a pretty good collection. Like they're pretty rare. I still got to work on getting the documentation that's proving that, but I can tell you that it did happen. So yeah, no. It's funny. I was working with Corey Schneider yesterday, and we were talking about Flower and just kind of slinging stories about him. Dude, there's so many. You know, Flowers. Everything you ever hear about him and you see about him and how you take in his smile and his personality, like he's all of that, man. Like he's an absolute joy, dude. When you come to the rink, no matter if I suck and I'm a scratch or whatever the situation is, you come in, you see him and you laugh. He's so fun to be around. There's just little things like that he would do. You know, I remember, we were just talking yesterday. There's this one time we were on the plane and we were just talking about, we had a group. We had what were they? The PSPs or whatever, the PlayStation Portable or whatever. We'd have a group. We'd all be playing. We play play SOCOM, like a Call of Duty type game where we're all playing against each other on the plane. And Flower was in that group, and we'd play, and then we'd talk shit, and then we'd talk about it's like other video games when we played when we were a little kid. And I remember we're talking about like old school Nintendo games, and then Flower chimes in, and he just like. he just chimes in the one time and he goes, I like Super Mario Bros. I'm like, what? And he goes, Super Mario Bros. And we're like, what do you mean Bros? He goes, Bros, Bros. And I'm like, that's brothers, man. Super Mario Brothers. And he goes, really? Like he's like, he called it Super Mario Bros. All the time, but just like innocent stuff like that, maybe a little bit lost in translation. He was so great. But I remember one time we're getting ready. So I was one of those guys, and you guys had your routines too when you're getting ready for a game. And like I was one of those guys who I kind of waited to the last minute to get dressed. So say it was, I don't know, whatever. I don't even remember the time. Maybe there was 7 minutes or 6.5 minutes left before you go out for warmups. And I'd be doing my thing in the gym. I'd be running around, getting, my body temp up and loosened up. And I'd run in the room and I'd just be like throwing my gear on real quick. And Flower, for a goaltender, would push me around that time. Like he would always be like one of the last guys to get dressed and he'd be playing in the game. Right. So, but there's a lot of times too where I didn't know even which goalie was necessarily playing. And I remember one time I was in the gym, I was doing my routine, kind of doing, jumps and doing all these different things, little sprints. And I look and Flowers over there with the strength coach. The strength coach has like the pads like this, and Flowers got the boxing gloves on and he's just jumping around, like just having fun, just pop, 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 throwing punches. And I'm sitting there, music's playing, he's having a good time. And so I'm like, oh, he must not be playing. Like Brent Johnson must be playing. And then I'm getting ready to leave the gym and Flower runs out before me. And as we're running to the locker room, he does a cartwheel and he's just like, like laughing around, like he's like a little kid, right? And I'm like, oh, whatever, joking around with him. And I'm thinking, oh, Johnny's playing. So we go out for warmups and he's the first guy in the net. And this is like, he had like 5 minutes to get ready. I don't even know how he got ready. He got out there. And I'm like, this is what this guy does. Like he went out there and had a great game. Like he's just not one of those goalies you can't talk to. He's so loose. And the other one that he did, he would sit there and we'd always have like our shootouts at the end of practice. And he would always do like push-ups when you're coming down on a shootout. And then, you get pissed and you go to shoot it real quick, try to surprise me, jump up and boom, get a big blocker save. And he talks so much trash, right? So he'd do these things, or he'd come down, he'd put his glove in front of his face and then all of a sudden he'd open up and he'd catch, he'd stop you when he's monkeying around. And so the one time we were joking around, we're like, hey, Flower, I'm like, can you imagine if you did that like in a real shootout? Like if somebody was skating down on you in a real NHL game in the shootout, and I'm like, and if you did something like
push-ups or something, oh my
God,
God,
and like it would mess with their brain. Like they would take them out of whatever they were thinking or doing. I'd probably do what we all try to do, just try to surprise them real quick. And he's like, I should do that. I should do that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So this is like a week later. We're getting ready they're scraping the ice going in to the shootout. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, this hasn't even crossed my mind since that we were joking around about it. And so it's starting. Flower comes over the bench, gets a water bottle, and he comes up to us and he goes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he started skating backwards, like going back to the net with a big smile. All you see is a big smile on his net. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And we're like, you're going to do what? And he goes, push-ups. And I'm like, no. I'm like, don't, dude. I'm like, he's like going like this. So like during this, he didn't do it, obviously, but like during this, I'm like so scared. I'm like, dude, Flower, don't, man. This is going to be, if you get burned on that, like you'll never live that one down. You know what I mean?
Man.
It was Rupper's idea.
He's the guy that would have done it and made the save. I'm like, this guy is so fun to be around.
So many GMs' heads would have exploded if he did something like that. I don't even want to know how Sully would have reacted.
You think the old school people get pissed when we see a Michigan? How about if the goalie's doing the push-ups?
Oh, somebody would have had a full-on stroke. Well, you know what? I love the Flower stories. I never got to know him from playing with him, but I knew him from being in Chicago, broadcasting for the team for a year, and it all checks out. I mean, because he was that way to us as broadcasters. Such a great guy to hear people talk about. He's that guy that everybody says he's the best guy I ever played with. So I don't know how we can do better than that, Johnny. We get the naked autograph story. We get the Flower stories. Rupper, you've kind of made me feel a little bit empowered to the fact that telling the story of the best picture I ever got with a non-hockey player was with Big Poppy in the bathroom of the Red Sox locker room, because after the 11 Cup, they brought the whole team into the locker room, and then we were all going out onto the field to throw a first pitch. Even the Black Aces, we were all a part of it. And I'm like looking around for Poppy, and I'm like, because I played college hockey in Boston, like, that was a thing, right? And I'm like, where is this guy? He's the only guy not in the locker room. So I'm like, I'm gonna go check the bathroom. Sure enough, he's in the bathroom, like getting himself all ready and everything. And I'm like, hey, can we do a quick photo real quick? So it's like me in my Bruins jersey, Poppy like he had a Bruins like baseball hat on, because like I think they were wearing it for the game or something, and all you see is like the urinal behind us. And people give me so much shit about that photo, and so I'm always trying to like crop it when I repost it or reuse it for anything Poppy does, where you can't see the urinal in the background, just so I don't get as much shit. I know Johnny's. That sounds like kind of like a Johnny move right there. So maybe I was channeling my inner Johnny Lass.
I'm not shy to ask for a photo, that's for sure. And people
No,
shit
hey,
me for it, but
no,
why not?
why not, dude? You got to,
Yeah. Yeah, and Rupper, when you were talking about the PSP thing on the plane, it's funny because, the first ever HBO 24/7, I know I've talked to you about this, how much I love that series. There's that scene on the plane where Fleury's sitting next to Crosby and he does like the "suck it, Talbot" or something like that. And
Yeah. Yeah,
when that came out,
oh, you're such a douche.
yeah. And when that came out, like I remember, I think it was like 2011, right? So I was like probably 14.
9.
No, I was like 14, but I remember like that next 2 weeks at practice, whenever someone like dangled somebody or did something cool like on the ice, we just scream across the rink, "Suck it, Talbot!" Like that was like it became a thing. So
Hey, one last one for you as far as
Yeah.
playing that. So we would play, and I remember there was in the group, I'm probably missing some guys, but the regulars in our SOCOM group. So we would have, I think a lot of times 8. We'd have 8 guys playing this, and you just play a local game, right? So we on the plan to be 4v4 basically, like teams, and you last person standing your team wins. And so we play as many rounds as we can on the flight, and we whatever, keep track, talk a little shit. And so the guys that played were, I remember Flower was clearly in there, Max Talbot, Sid was in there, myself, Jay McKee, Ruslan Fedotenko.
Wow.
I'm missing.
You're dating yourself a little bit right now. Roper.
I am. Yeah. And you're going back, and yeah, there's, I don't remember who the other ones were, but anyways, we had a good group, and so we play, and how like all those things are in the competitions in the room, they just throw out like random. In the locker room, we'd post like weekly rankings, and they're just bullshit. Like, yeah, I could be the worst one, and I probably was. And I put myself at like 3, and I'd put the best guys like, at 5 or 7 or whatever. Guys
It's
lose
like
it.
ping pong. Oh,
yeah, it's all the same stuff. So I remember I was in. I remember one day we were like, hey, we should try playing online, because we felt like we were getting good. And you know how any of these games are, like when you go and play online, it's another level, right? Like you're like, wow, I'm actually not very good at this game. And so we wanted to go online. So we flew into somewhere, whatever city we were in, and we said, all right, hey, let's go and meet. We'll go to blah 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 room, one of our rooms, and we're gonna try to all figure out how to like get on there together, so you can create your own like clan on this game. So we went in the room, and it's just hilarious because all of us, we've got all these NHL players, and we're sitting there. We were sitting on the floor in the corner of the room. We're all sitting in there. We're setting up these games, and we get in there and we start playing. And we had a clan name that was like, it was something with Pittsburgh Penguins, but it wasn't like Pittsburgh Penguins. It was something like they would almost, it would lead you to believe there was something like that. But then all of a sudden I started looking at all of our screen names. It's hilarious. It was like Talbot 25. It'd be like Flower 29. Sid's was Private Ryan 87. Like I remember all these like things. So I'm like, dude, can you imagine like someone playing this and knowing like Sidney Crosby and Chris Letang and all these guys are on the other end of this, and we would play, and it was so funny though, because we would sit there and we would get worked, and you can hear coming through the other end just like little kids They were just dusting us on there.
Talking shit too,
Yeah,
probably.
I remember Chris Letang would like try to talk shit. I'm like, dude, you can't talk. This kid's like a little kid, man. And he's like, oh, you're right. But it was, man, it's, it doesn't matter how old you are. You're playing in national hockey. You're all a bunch of little kids when you get together. We had a blast doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard a lot of good stories about like current NHLers that play Chell online that, make a kid quit early or something like that. I think Shane Pinto is one of those who's done that. But yeah, that's the best part about, hearing these stories too, right? Like all these hockey players, whether it's Crosby, whether it's, someone on a fourth line in like Winnipeg or something, everyone's the same,
Yeah.
And that's really cool to hear.
What's wrong with being on the fourth line in Winnipeg, Johnny?
You're just not Sidney Crosby.
Still an NHL job, though. Geez, you've had a rough week of going after different fan bases and different players for reasons. We're gonna have to revisit that.
Hey, why Winnipeg?
Well, that's what I mean. Exactly? What's the problem with Winnipeg? What did they do to you except they're the best team in the NHL right now? Why is that your crutch?
Whenever I just go to any kind of insult, I just always go to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I don't know, just second nature.
All right. Who are we gonna need to get on from Winnipeg now?
I don't know. That's a good question, but we'll figure that out. Not Big Buff. Anyone but Big Buff, and we're good because I'm scared of him. But Rupper, I guess I told you 15 to 20 minutes tops. You give us about 50. So thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back on whenever you're willing to give us the time. So thanks, Rupper.
Hey, anytime, boys. Love being on with you guys, and we'll chat soon, I'm sure.
All right. That is Mike Rupp. What an episode. What a day. A lot of hockey talk, a lot of fun stories. I'm really appreciative of him to take his time to talk to us today. We plan on going into a lot of the award talk for this season.
It can only go downhill. It can only go downhill from here. So yeah. I think the best thing we can do is cut it and let everybody enjoy Mike Rupp and what he had to say. And, we don't have to listen to Johnny go and drown on about how much he doesn't like Winnipeg. It's today's flavor of the day. It's not even
really going to become a thing that you're just going to keep doing this to me.
Listen, it's not even a flavor of the week. You don't even stay on someone or a team for a whole week. I mean, you'd literally jump from day to day. I can only imagine what your dating life is like.
Oh, kind of like that. But, all right, that's going to do it for today's show. We want to thank Rupper again. We want to thank our producer, Vic. And again, we won't be live tomorrow. We're only Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. every week. So you won't hear from us until Monday, but we'll have another fun week next week. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for being active in the chat. Sorry we didn't get to the questions today, but we will next week. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And that's it for Morning Cup of Hockey.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.